Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, your Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Fox 40s, Sean Cunningham. Mr. Cunningham, how are you?
Mr. Ham, president accounted for. I am fine. Brenden, how are you? Present.
I am doing all right. Happy to be doing another episode of the Kings Beat. I feel like we got a good bit to talk about.
See this? You guys tried to make me skip my intro? That's some BS right there.
Save everybody's eardrums. I feel like
of
it's
course,
appreciated.
Brenden Nunes from the Kings Post podcast is here.
And James Ham of ESPN 1320.
That's right. All right, we got plenty of people in here. This should be fun. It's a good day for Sacramento. So if you're watching this live, and you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. If you are not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button for us. And then let's see. We also, I think we'll start with our big announcement. We're going to have the next edition of the Kings Beat, off the record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour. I haven't figured out the end portion. It could be something like The Legend.
Long enough.
Yeah, off the record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour part 11, I think, The Legend. And we're going to actually do something that I think this will be controversial.
Is it?
I think it will. I think some people will either love our next guest or will have deep-seated dislike. And so
that could be anybody, though. That's with
anybody.
Me. People either love me or hate me, you know?
I don't know, Sean. I think everyone loves you.
I don't
Okay, so we're not going to do the happy hour this Thursday because Sean has to board a plane and go to Philadelphia to cover some crappy football or something.
Hold on,
and
you
then,
guys could still do it if you wanted to.
No, because you have to be here for this one.
Okay.
You got to hold my hand for this one, Sean.
Are you sure? Oh. First of all, James, there's no guarantee I can be there next Thursday.
That's true.
This is some crazy times we're living in, pal.
It is crazy times. Okay, so Thursday, February 2nd, we are going to bring in Miss Aileen Voice on. Aileen is going to join us. A blast from the past. But someone who, to be honest with you, for as big of a voice as Aileen had in Sacramento for many, many, many years, I kind of feel like Aileen didn't get to have her going away party. And so I think we're going to make this a very interesting night and hang out with Aileen. Brenden, of course, has no idea who Aileen is.
No clue. Nope.
To be honest, I do not know.
He'll be resting his young little head, and he'll learn a lot. Let's put it this way: if you loved her or hate her, that's the job, right? She's a columnist. She's supposed to put out opinions, and you're not supposed to agree with all of them. That's called unbiased coverage of your team that you root for, and she does not. So that's the way you should want it. And she'll definitely make you think. She'll definitely piss you off. But she's one hell of a writer and one of the most connected people ever in the NBA. She was with the 92 Dream Team in Barcelona, went everywhere with them. Her stories are incredible. She's covered so many things, 2 relocation sagas. She's got a law degree background. I can watch people walk up to her and literally kiss her on the mouth.
Dick
former
Bavetta.
players, even former players, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, and it's done so in the way you would kiss your grandmother. And she's an eccentric person. She's one of my favorite people, and it'll be fun.
Okay, so people who don't know Aileen, I don't know how you would not know Aileen.
Also buckle up, because that might break the record for the longest one ever.
It could get wild. So
does she know how to
Aileen,
use Zoom, by the way?
I have to log on the night before and help Aileen set it up. I sat next to her for 2 full seasons courtside, no, 3 full seasons courtside, where I doubled as IT. Like, she didn't know how to do things on her phone. When her laptop wouldn't start, I would have to sit there and mess with it. So yeah, there will be we'll work on the technology side. But Aileen was a columnist for the Sacramento Bee, covering the Sacramento Kings for upwards of 20 years. But her career spans some crazy things. She literally sat through the trials when Donald Sterling absconded with the San Diego Clippers and moved them to LA without permission. She covered the entire trials. She's been through some battles. Everyone can remember some of the issues that she had with DeMarcus Cousins. And I guarantee you this: Aileen's going to be an open book. And I'm actually surprised. Or Sean, are you surprised there isn't an Aileen book on the way?
Well, who says there's not?
Oh, maybe there is. Maybe there is.
Again, like somebody who had the ear of David Stern, and some may scoff at this. If not for her, and look, I'm not trying to say she's the savior of this team, but if not for her reporting and her persistence, and like, she is a big reason why this team is not in another city right now.
Ooh.
And that's just facts. It's absolute facts.
Interesting. So next Thursday, not this Thursday, but next Thursday, if you're a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat, we're going to have, this will be an intriguing Off the Record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour. So in order to get the invite, you got to be a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this one. She's an interesting lady. I actually ran into her at Macy's like 2 weeks ago. And like, we sat there in the women's shoe department for like 20 minutes and caught up a bit, while I bought my wife some boots. So it should be an interesting saga. Okay. So outside of that, we have a little bit of news to cover. Monte McNair, Wes Wilcox, they got the extensions. This is kind of strange. We've talked about this so many times on the podcast, waiting for something like this to happen, and then it kind of dropped out of nowhere. Sean, let's start with you. What's your initial thought here? It sounds like it's a 3-year contract extension for both the GM and the assistant GM to stick around, and it kind of mirrors the Mike Brown contract that we know. And so, like, give me your initial breakdown.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I think from a continuity standpoint, that's what you want to line everyone up with. This is, Mike Brown is somebody that obviously he hired, so that's a good thing. And the success that they've been experiencing is something that can all hang their hat on, including ownership. And I feel like it was just a matter of time before this got done. I think there was a lot of crossing of T's and dotting of I's, and sometimes things can get a little janky, but I think it was the right move for the organization. I think, honestly, it's the right move for Monte McNair and where he's at in his career. And I think people like to say that, why doesn't this happen before the season? Why is it happening in the season? Like, there's a lot of things that go into it, and I think part of them on both sides wanted to kind of see if this thing was going to work or not. I have to kind of watch what I say for a second, but it's, there's moments where, people will start to think and have their own thoughts as to whether or not this could be the right fit for them. Could this GM be the right fit for their organization? Could this organization be the right fit for the employee? And there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to it. But at the end of the day, they're a pretty harmonious group at this moment, and it's probably the most stability that they've had, and everyone being on the same page. And I really truly feel, really going back to the offseason where I wasn't worried about it. It was kind of a formality, and there's a little bit of a, hey, is this thing going to work or not? And I think it's a good thing. Look, the one thing this organization has shown that they're not necessarily a frugal or cheap organization. They don't mind spending money for people that don't work for their organization anymore, and they're committed to trying to see it through. So I commend them for that, and I think they've got a good thing going. So if things turn south, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world to say sayonara to both of them, but at the same time, it doesn't look like it's going to be heading that way anytime soon.
Yeah, Brenden, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, from a selfish point of view, mainly relieved that we don't have to talk about this anymore. I'm happy that these guys got extended. It's clearly well-deserved. I understand I think it happening prior to this season, I understand why you would want to wait. Like the Tyrese and Sabonis trade was questionable, and I had no clue how that was going to work out. I certainly didn't expect it to go this well, even when if I were to try to consider what the best possible outcome is, I didn't even think this was possible. And now you're able to kind of look back at these Monte McNair, Wes Wilcox front office led moves, and there's a handful that are looking pretty good right now. I mean, not just that Tyrese Sabonis swap, but even this is smaller, but trading away Marvin Bagley for Trey Lyles, like hilariously, Trey Lyles looks like a better productive player than Marvin Bagley in the present. Signing or trading for Kevin Huerter and taking advantage of an Atlanta team that was primarily seemingly functioning for cap for purposes, adding Malik Monk, drafting Davion Mitchell. I think there's a handful of things that you can look at and feel good about just how this front office has performed and moving forward. And hiring Mike Brown actually is probably the biggest, and I somehow glossed over that. And I think that is been one of the bigger things for this organization. So just having some continuity and specifically getting this done prior to the deadline, to me, stands out as something that's important, because at any given deadline, front offices have a sort of power to really make big changes. And if they feel a need to do things in the short term to try to save their job or make odds better for them to re-sign throughout this offseason or anything like that, it just gives you another aspect to think about. And I think that a front office having this sense of security, being on the same page as the coaching staff finally is just something that's so important. So I think it's well-deserved, and was personally a little relieved to have seen this news.
Yeah, so look, we started hearing rumors about a potential that the extension might be done in early December, and that they might just be waiting. And then I got some big time denials from all kinds of different sides. So I think this is a good thing. Look, I said it at the time. If you're going to allow Monte McNair to trade Tyrese Halliburton, you got to go all in. You're all in on him. You allowed him to change the absolute direction of the franchise. And if you're not committed to him now, then you should not have let him make that move, in my opinion. And so I think it's really good. I think we've touched base with people in the organization multiple times. I know that just Vivek wanted to see it happen. He wanted to see where this team was going and whether they were going to be a winner or not before he put the final stamp of approval on this. And I've been one that's been very clear, look, if I'm Monte McNair, it might not have been the worst thing. I mean, if you can turn around the Sacramento Kings, if they don't want to pay you the right dollar amount, if they don't want to give you the right amount of years, then be a free agent this summer. He would have got a job. He would have got a job taking over another team, because look, he just proved what he could do. And this is what's happening in Sacramento is fun. It's exciting, but it took a ridiculously huge gamble by a guy who had to convince an owner, and then a guy who had to go to battle against his owner and make sure that they came up with the right coach. This entire thing that we have that's going on right now in Sacramento, it has Monte McNair's stamp all over it. It is him and Wes Wilcox have done this damage, whether it's good or bad, together. And so far, I mean, look, they're 8 games over 500. They're 27-19. They're the 3rd seed in the Western Conference right now. You got to reward the guys for coming up big and doing a good job. And so I'm glad to see it's over too, like Brenden said. But at the same time, like it almost felt like it was inevitable, right? This was going to happen.
I am actually picturing a world that exists where Monte McNair chooses to go into GM free agency in the same offseason that possibly Bob Myers of the Warriors becomes available.
Oh. What are you trying to say, Sean?
I think I just said it.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if.
The Kings are a better team now, Sean. I don't think you understand that.
They're better
Well, that wasn't what we were talking
Sean.
about.
What are you talking about?
First of all, that's not the discussion we were having. I was proposing two possibly highly sought after GMs possibly being available in the same offseason. But Monte McNair will not be one of them now. So
He will not be one of them. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And I think it's interesting that these two are still tied together, because even like the opening marriage of this situation, like this was one of the toughest jobs in the league to take. You had an owner who had burned through already 2 GMs and countless head coaches. You had the first move you had to make was to give De'Aaron Fox $160-something million extension. You had Buddy Hield on a contract that a lot of people didn't know if you could trade. Your salary cap situation was okay, but not great. And then you start adding some of these other things in, like you beat one guy out for the job, and then ownership asks you to hire him as your number 2. And, so like, look, I think, on top of that, you had to keep Luke Walton for at least 1 season and maybe more. And so this was a very complicated job. And I think Monte, he's done a yeoman's job of turning the corner with this franchise.
Yes. I hate to be the Sean Cunningham of this podcast, but I will point
you should
out.
Consider yourself so lucky. Go ahead.
They are only 3.5 games back from the 6th seed. Like, as much as this is a great feeling right now, there is absolutely a world where this team is a play-in team and anything can happen in the play-in. So
also
I
3.5 games out of second place.
Absolutely.
Or should we say second place?
First of all, just think of what you just said, Brenden. Say it again with gusto this time.
I hate to be Sean Cunningham.
Mm-hmm, that's great. But
and a sentence.
Let's put that on a shirt.
What were you saying?
This team is only 3.5 games out of the play-in.
Out of the play-in. There you go. Rewind to the post to this offseason where we were talking about this team being in the mix for a play-in tournament, right?
Yes. But if you were to make the play-in and not make it, that still wasn't a successful season, right?
If you were to, well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. I think this team's goal is to experience the postseason, to show that this thing can work. And, the job's not finished this year. You got a whole nother season to hopefully make some inroads. But if all of a sudden you're finding yourself with, several games over 500 and peaking at 3 in the Western Conference, I don't know that many people, I know I didn't, but I don't think even many people in that organization thought that this would be a third-place team in the West. So, granted, you're not that far from it, and I think what we do a great job on this podcast is kind of keeping that context in mind. I know I've been doing it for a long time when we talk about, you're 6 games out of first place in the Western Conference, but you're, 4.5 out of falling to 11th. I last week I kind of made a proclamation where I don't think that this team will ever fall out of the top 11 or top 10 in the West based off of the equity that they built, and I truly believe that. That being said, it's entirely feasible that it could happen. I would bet that it probably wouldn't, and I think that really ensures themselves of having a rather successful season overall. Even if they were to finish, Brenden, with the 7th pick or 7th spot in the West and get bounced in a play-in tournament, it's certainly a bitter pill to swallow, but it's certainly about what you expected this team to be.
Totally. I will say, real quick is that I do think this team will be a top 6 seed. I think it was just important to point out because we're talking about it like this has been amazing, and it absolutely has been, but it's just not over. Job's not finished, right? And it's still kind of TBD. Yeah, I don't need to go too much more into it. Everybody knows the risk to some of the moves that maybe have been made and things like that, but it's clearly paying off right now. I think that is going to keep up, I believe, a lot more after what we've seen the last week and a half, 2 weeks than what I did prior to that when they had first kind of solidified themselves or moved into that 3 spot. So I think they'll stay there. I just think it's important to point out is all.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to read a line, the final line of Monte McNair's statement in the press release. We recognize we have more work to do and look forward to what's ahead. And then I'm going to go down to the final line of Vivek Ranadive's quote. It says, "The work continues, and I have confidence in this front office to keep driving our efforts forward." I guess the question is, where are we at? What does this mean for February 9th and the NBA trade deadline? Do you feel better now that these 2 guys are securely planted as the decision makers of the Sacramento Kings going into a very, very crucial NBA trade deadline?
I would say whatever helps you sleep at night, sure, but it honestly it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. They would still be doing their job just by the simple fact that they're there and look, you're gonna work out you're gonna work while you're under contract. I mean, it's not like all of a sudden you just mail it in. And I think there's two key words that stood out in that Vivek Ranadive quote, which is our efforts. He's just as much a part of this as those guys, and it's
but
not.
He can't be fired, Sean.
No, he cannot.
He can't be fired.
No, he cannot. But that is the makeup of that front office, and it's not unique to Sacramento. It's very similar in through all NBA teams. But they're all there. They're all this machine that tries to produce quality talent to have a successful and sustain a successful playoff type team. So I don't think one has anything to do with the other in terms of getting the extension done before the trade deadline. I think that would still take place and still to the best of their efforts as whether he was locked up or not.
Yeah, I side with Sean on this, but I guess like if I am thinking through a possible deadline scenario, I'm more inclined prior to this to be like, well, they don't have an extension, so I have no clue. And it makes it feel more unpredictable to me prior to that. And maybe I'm off base on that, but I think that's just kind of how my thought process would work on that. And I just feel like just general human nature, like you feel more of a sense of security. You don't feel like you need to take as many risks. And maybe I'm wrong for that, but I think the progress we've seen already this season is enough to be a step. And then obviously you'll get to a point where you need to take another step. But right now, like Coach has talked so much about this core's need for playoff experience. And if this year ends with a first round playoff exit, that is a huge thing for this team. And I just think that you're in a position to not feel like it's necessary to take as many risks as long as you stay somewhere close to where you're at now, because there's ways that maybe you could feel disappointed at the end of the year, but still like that postseason experience, even late end of season experience. We've heard Harrison Barnes talk about like he hasn't felt like he's played meaningful games in December in how many years. Like I think that already this year has been so important for the core of this team. And in my mind, they just would feel less pressure, thinking of it from a human point of view, to do drastic changes or just anything kind of, under pressure that maybe you're on the fence about, but because you're not sure, you feel like you have to do something.
I think also, just to build off that real quick, I think also, though, they already did it. Like, I don't think there's a move out there that, would be any bigger than the move they just did. You know what I mean? That the franchise-altering move was bringing in somebody like Domantas Sabonis. So I think because that is not necessarily on the table, where you don't have a move of that magnitude. That's personally why I think it would make it a lot easier. But go ahead, Brett, James.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. I think this is tremendous, not just for this trade deadline, but going forward. Because look, I think that what we've seen is that there has been internal discussions about what should happen here and what should happen there. And, should the Kings select this player or that player? Should the Kings trade Tyrese Halliburton, yes or no? Should Luke Walton lose his job? Should Doug Christie be given the head coaching job? Should Mike Brown or Mark Jackson be the new head coach of the Sacramento Kings? And I bring up all of these things because in each one of these situations, Monte McNair had to state his case and he had to fight for his case. And when you walk into a room on February 7th and say, this is a potential trade that we have and I'm going to lay it out for you, and this is why we should do it, you have more power in that room when you have an extension than when you are literally fighting for your job still. And so I think it does matter. I think it, we can just write it off as, oh, he probably was going to be here anyways. But I don't know. Do you fight as hard for it if you're not secure in what you're doing? Do you make a decision that's rash and that's short term, that makes sense for you as an individual to get your team over the hump, so you potentially have a better shot of making the playoffs, but could do damage to you, the franchise long term? I think all of that's off the table now. Whatever happens here is going to be exactly what Monte McNair and Wes Wilcox have done over the last couple of years. And they're building something for themselves. They're building something for the ownership group. They're building something for the guys on the floor. They're building something for the community because they're part of it. And they're going to be here for another 3 years, barring, them all getting fired for a complete collapse and screwing things up between now and 2 years from now. So does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe they'll be comfortable enough to pick one and done players in the draft now. You never know.
Maybe, yeah, for sure. I also look at it too as whether he's got the job long term or, was on a short leash with the lame duck scenario. He's still going before the same king. You know what I mean? So now that you have the protection of years, it's it just adds more to it. I think. I don't feel like like I said, whatever makes anyone else sleep at night or himself as well. I just don't think the pressure, honestly, is any different.
Okay. All right. Well, we have over 200 people here, in the podcast. And
how many likes do they do?
I don't know. I if I switch over to that, then it goes live and it makes a bunch of noise.
Oh, I just
and all
looked
that
at 67. I just looked.
Okay. Well, yeah, we could use a few more likes.
And what do we do? Don't like twice because that takes away, right?
Damn it, Sean.
Twice.
I don't know,
times
Sean.
we have to tell you this, old man.
I don't know, Sean. What happened?
One time, people. One time.
How do I set the clock on my VCR, Sean?
That I
odd
surprisingly
number.
know how to do. Brenden, a VCR is something that people used to watch movies on. And
do you hear that?
Cassette form.
I feel like there's a noise in the background. It might be your pager going off, Sean. I'm not sure.
Oh, I had a pager.
I also had a page.
Two-way. You get to type on it. It was like what text messaging used to
Oh,
be.
no. Yeah. Okay, so, hey, let's get to the Sean Voice over there. That's a good one,
Easy.
Meg. Easy. We'll block Brenden out for a moment and throw that up. Yeah.
Can you breathe?
Okay, so yeah, let's reset really quick. We did announce that the Off the Record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour will be next Thursday, February 2nd from 5:30 to 7:30. And our guest is, I think it's going to be spectacular. It's going to be Aileen Voice, who was the columnist for the Sacramento Bee for a couple of decades and absolutely has some of the most incredible stories you're ever going to hear. And there will be wine flowing and, it'll be a good time. So become a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat in order to get the invite to the happy hour. And let's switch gears. Because we brought up the trade deadline. Rui Hachimura is the first shoe to drop, I guess. He goes from the Washington Wizards to the Los Angeles Lakers for, what is it, Kendrick Nunn and 3 second-round picks. Should the Kings have been involved?
I think to a certain extent, sure. I think Rui's a hell of a talent. I think he would. I think he's going to be really good in LA. I think he could have been really good here too. But I'll admit I was a little surprised that was the price at the end of the day. I thought it might command a little bit more than that.
A little bit more like a first-round pick?
Perhaps, but more, maybe even more just, expiring deals and things of that nature. Maybe a bigger, I don't know. I just expected to see more than that. And then when I saw that, I thought, man, that's kind of a steal for LA.
Brenden?
I don't know that it does much for the Lakers in my mind. I think positionally it's weird to me. Like, are you playing Rui at the 3? I don't know. It's a weird fit to me. And also it puts them in a weird spot with, I thought, one of their biggest potential paths of improvement without trading this 27 or 29 first overall pick was the cap space they could have this offseason. And Rui is going to have, I think it's something, I could be a little off of this number, something like an $18 million cap hold that adds some complications to, there it is, $18.8 million cap hold. They could add some complications to how they're going to spend their money. And I think the biggest takeaway for me, because I don't really think he's somebody that would have helped the Kings that much in my mind. Like, obviously depth is
Really?
nice. I think he's an NBA player, obviously, but the Kings have no issue on the offensive end. No issue at all. And I don't know that Rui does anything for you defensively.
That's a really long body, man. That's a very athletic long body that is
So
only
is
gonna
Chimezie Metu.
Yeah, but this guy's more skilled than Chimezie Metu. And
Yeah, we're talking about the 9th pick in the draft from,
right.
4 years ago.
That's like super insulting. He should take a lap.
Take a lap.
Even Chimezie Metu was like, holy
I'm gonna
shit,
need
man.
to get down and give me 10. Come on. We've gone from bullying Brenden for his lack of movie knowledge. Now we're going to make him do exercises when he says something that we don't like. I'm going to go over a couple of things. Number one, I heard on Friday that the Kings had called on Rui, but it didn't go anywhere. And whether that was, I didn't have time to chase it down fully because he got traded a couple of days later. We had back-to-back games, and I just wasn't on top of it. So there would have been like some more exploratory work into what exactly it meant that they had called on him. We've seen some rumors floating out there now that the Kings and the Mavericks were two teams that were also interested. The Kings have, me and Brenden did the math, they have 372 second-round picks in the next 7 drafts. I think the number, was 11? It's 11.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive
I'll
it's
save you
11
counting right
second-round
now.
picks.
They have 4 additionals, and the only 2 of their own that they can't use are the 26 and 27 that technically could potentially go to Atlanta in that Herter deal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the Kings easily could have gone and got Rui Hachimura. I think he would have been intriguing as a guy who can play multiple positions and just give you a better option at a backup forward position. I don't think he's going to steal anybody's spot. But it's still, there's value there in Rui Hachimura. My question is, I also
kind of like the prospect of him and Keegan Murray together for the next few years, surrounding themselves with somebody like Domas and De'Aaron Fox. I mean, that I get all that, but I get this guy's very manageable contract for several years and could blossom into quite a player.
But we don't know his contract, right?
Yeah, we don't. He's a restricted free agent after the season.
Right. Which is
Yes.
team control.
It's team control. And look, he'll be 25 in a couple of days. So he's one of those guys that kind of fits that age arc of this team. Here's what I'm going to say. Like, I would love to just bash the front office and say, "Oh, you should have made this deal. Like, I don't understand why you
No.
had more that you could have given than this." Like, we got to get through February 9th and see what the Kings do, because they might already have something that's different, that's better, that's something that makes more sense to them and makes more sense to the overall puzzle than a deal for Rui Hachimura. And so
100%.
and we're also talking about a guy who turned down a contract at $12 million a year, who probably hasn't lived up to $12 million a year. And that's a really kind of lame area to be in because it's right around the mid-level going forward. And so
Well, and
if
here's the other
you,
thing, James. I think this just, I mean, if you'll have a shot at him. If they truly value him or thought, like, I really like this guy, maybe I don't go with him now, whatever. It's not like you don't have another shot at him depending upon what happens. Again, restricted free agency can be a funny thing. Team control is attractive, but there's no reason to break your bank. There's no reason to, give up a whole hell of a lot for it. I get it. I understand it. And there's ways to go about things, even if you truly value the guy. So you kind of play the long game with some things. I mean, if he's never a King, it's not the end of the world. I'm just saying that, there's reasons why I feel like the Kings could be better off holding their cards.
yeah,
Listen, I know. Listen, I know that Mike Brown said you can have a good defense with 5 Trey Lyleses, but I really don't want to test his theory.
No, I do not either. I do not either.
I got to be honest, man. Like all the years that I've covered the Kings, and Sean, I know you've covered the Kings forever. Trey Lyles is becoming one of my favorite guys. He's really bright and articulate. He always walks around with a book, and I've heard like I kind of made the joke like, well, is it the same book or is it just like a brand? Like, is it he
No, it's a
just
new
keeps
book.
walking around with the same? He's on his 3rd book in like the last 2
It's
weeks.
not a LeBron like first page every time type thing.
Yeah, he's probably reading the beginning and the end. Oh, does Sean have the book?
He was reading this one,
Oh,
and
Oh,
this is a good one, but
is that
was
autographed?
he at the Chris Rock show also, or?
Is this one of those Sean Humble brags right here?
yes, it is. Yes.
Nothing humble about it.
Oh
But
yeah.
he was reading this one, and he's very well read, and he really goes through a lot of them.
Well, he's a guy who's been like incredibly impactful this season. I looked, and when Trey Lyles scores in double figures, the Kings are like 11-4 on the season. So we want to point to guys like Harrison Barnes and how many times he scores 20, and the Kings are really good when he scores 20. But when you can have a tertiary guy who, like, I can remember back to 5 or 6 games this season where I thought the Kings would have lost if it wasn't for Trey Lyles. And that's not something that I remember thinking about, like, I don't know, Luther Head or, name that guy that the Kings bring in. Well, no, I mean, like, where would we put Trey Lyles? Even if you're talking about guys that they bring, like, I don't remember Marco Bellinelli in his lone season in Sacramento having 6 games where I thought, man, that Marco Bellinelli pretty much saved the day. Like, there just wasn't that. And so, like, he has an ability to actually help out. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just like Trey Lyles. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that he's become a staple in this rotation, not at the top of it or anything, but like there's nights where he closes games. We saw him have that second night, the second game against Houston, and the time that they played 2 games in a row in Sacramento, where I think it was 15-6 in the 4th quarter alone. And then the game that we just saw him have most recently against the Memphis Grizzlies, he was obviously phenomenal. And like we heard Coach earlier in the year talk about, he feels like there's kind of 7 guys that's in the rotation, and then the 8th one is kind of up in the air. And I think Trey, who I believe has played 18 games in a row now, the first of those 2 were small minutes, but like 16 games in a row where only one of them he's played under 10 minutes. And Coach talked about at practice today, or maybe it was post game yesterday, that like there was once he put Trey in, it was hard to take him out. Trey lost 15 pounds this offseason, which is something he said that has made a big difference for him, just not getting winded out there. Like he challenged Trey to not be pump faking. And we've seen Trey do that. He challenged Trey to be a better rebounder defensively, and we've seen Trey respond to that. Like I think it's a credit to the coaching staff, but also obviously a credit to Trey himself for responding in the way he did. I will say I have a little bit of questions of like, how much of a factor is it being a contract year? And just curious. I don't know. We'll see. I'd imagine that factors into a little bit of my off season of losing 15 pounds. But either way, it's been impressive. And it's really important that you feel like getting an 8-man rotation compared to 7 that you can rely on a nightly basis is huge.
It's been great. I mean, I think it's still a small sample size, and you'd probably, wish to upgrade the position, but he's blown me away for sure. And I was looking at a comment somebody made, by the way, in our YouTube chat, and it was one TXP saying that one of Mo Bamba's agents was seen in a hotel in Sac 2 days ago, and if we'd heard anything on that recently, I'd like to point out that Mark Bartelstein represents almost half the league. he
800 players.
A lot of players, including Keegan Murray. So don't look into too much around there.
I wouldn't look into that either all that much. I mean, the Kings are they're gonna try to improve this team, and it doesn't have to be a major swing. I think they could do 1 or 2 minor adjustments to try to make this team better. One of them, so Mark Stein is an incredible reporter still. It doesn't matter where he's at. He still has ties all over the league. He put out that he had heard from some executives around the league that they thought that to keep an eye on Richaun Holmes as a potential buyout candidate. I don't know. Look, we're not going to be able to get a comment from the front office on something like that. But I don't think the Kings would even consider a buyout because you're basically looking at $30 million walking away, right? And even though you can stretch provision him, which the stretch provision is very interesting. So Holmes has 2 years left on his contract and this season. So if you waived him and stretched him, you can double the length of years in the contract plus 1 year. So you could stretch because he's under contract for 3 years. That means 6 plus 1 is 7 years. So you could take the remaining $30-something million in his contract, and you could stretch that over a long period of time and make it more manageable. But still, that's not something that I think the Kings would consider at this point, because that ties you to his contract for 7 years. And we're talking about, $4.5 million for the next 7 years. And that seems like something that I'm not sure where that comes from, that someone would get that information. But unless Richaun Holmes was willing to not opt into the final year of his contract to leave Sacramento early, I don't see a way that Richaun Holmes would be waived from the Kings.
Especially when you have so many other waivable pieces. And
especially when Chimezie Metu just almost broke his knee in half, and you hope that he'll be back soon. But Richaun Holmes might be needed on this team.
Who re-signed Richaun Holmes?
Monte McNair.
And who just got an extension?
Monte McNair.
Does that guy turn around a year later and stretch that guy? No. That's how you lose. That's how you get fired. That's how you don't earn your extensions. So
you ask your owner, hey, I know you just wrote me a check, but I'm going to need you to write one of those Happy Gilmore golf checks, the big ones, and just hand it to Richaun Holmes and say goodbye.
A stretch provision is if you're, with all due respect to Alex Len, had 4 more years or 3 more years on his deal at 10 per.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And this isn't Timothy Mozgov. Richaun can still play basketball. I know he hasn't been great. I do think it has a little bit to do with the system just not being ideal for him. I think we've seen moments. He just started when Sabonis was out with an illness, non-COVID related, against the Lakers, and he played well. He got into a rhythm and he played well. I thought that last night against Memphis that he played well in limited minutes. Does he still have moments where he's fouling? Maybe he should pull his hands back a little. I play defense with your hands locked behind your back sometimes. Might want to try it. But I think that pick and roll heavy offense, switch him on defense. Like I still think there's teams that can look at him and see a valuable player. And this isn't some astronomical number we're talking about. I know it's a lot. It's not nothing, but 10 to 12 million is nothing insane. Like, I don't know. I would be shocked if the decision was to stretch him. I don't think that, like, certainly not people lining up to take on Richaun Holmes, but all it takes is one. And I don't think it would be insane for a team to think that that's the way to go, or maybe it's like Doug McDermott's been floated around. And if the Spurs move on from Jakob Poeltl and the Kings want to try to get a Doug McDermott or a Josh Richardson that's making a little over 10 million. First of all, Holmes' matchable salary is important there. And San Antonio's a team that probably is not doing much with their cap space recently and has a lot to work with. If you attach a couple seconds, maybe you can do that. And that's not that much. Like, I just don't think that it's that much of a long shot to figure out how to move on from Richaun if you feel like you desperately need to do that, which I don't think they do in the first place. And I think stretching him just kind of elongates the problem.
Yeah, like I don't buy it. I mean, again, like it's not like Richaun Holmes has been a problem behind the scenes. You know, even like when we got him the other night, after he had his big game, like there's some really good moments from him where he starts, you know, talking about, hey, look, you know how difficult it is to replace a guy like Domantas Sabonis. Like, does anyone else notice that he's averaging like a triple-double over the last month and a half? Like, as a player, you either get it or you don't. Like, Richaun Holmes understands that Domantas Sabonis is a star and that he's the backup. He gets it. He's struggled with how to fit in, but I think, like, again, to your point, Brenden, like, one of the players I really like in the league is Brandon Clark, right? Brandon Clark averages like 10 points and 5 rebounds a game. He just signed a 4-year, $50 million extension where he makes $12.5 million each in the next 4 years. Like, is he a better player than Richaun Holmes? Like, maybe. Like, Richaun Holmes is also a guy who averaged 14 and 8 with block and 1.6 blocks like 2 years ago. So I don't know. Clearly, I mean, Brandon's younger and stuff like that, and I'm not saying trade Richaun for Brandon Clark. What I'm saying is that, like, you're right. The contract isn't that obscene. And you're looking at another 2 years. If the Kings have to bite the bullet for another 2 years, they probably will. Like, they would prefer to find a new home for him, you know, rehome their Richaun Holmes. But, like, as of right now, like, it's kind of one of those situations where you got to do what you got to do, right? You got to play it out and see what you can do between now and February 9th, and then what you can do this summer with him.
Even look back at Dwayne Dedmon. How long did it take to realize Dwayne Dedmon was not a good player?
5 seconds.
And he got a 3-year, $40 million deal. The Kings ended up trading him for not much, but you still traded him. Jabari Parker, Alex Len, like,
you got out of it.
There wasn't a moment where it's like, oh my God, they really need to, like, figure out how to clear out this money from Dwayne Dedmon. Like, maybe they need to stretch him.
You know,
that was some Houdini shit right there. I got to be honest.
I say this a lot too, man. Like, guys can be products of their environment, you know, and to your point about Brandon Clark, like, that's a guy who completely understands his role, fits into that system very, very well. Richaun Holmes just doesn't really fit into what this system is and what's required of him. Someone mentioned it a minute ago, and we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, which is, you know, Richaun Holmes tends to be somebody who has to find his rhythm a little bit and let the game come to him, not jump in and just all of a sudden be super impactful right away on a consistent level and do it within 3-minute spurts. That's just not kind of in his makeup, especially in the way this system is. It's not to say it can't work. It just hasn't so far. So there can be a little bit of an adapting to it, possibly. However, that being said, like, you plug him into a system like Golden State, and he might find a complete, you know, rebirth for him, and put Sacramento in his rear view. So I think he's still a very quality type player. It just hasn't really. It's been a little clunky here but it's been encouraging to see him have some good moments really over this past few weeks when he's been asked to produce.
Yeah, and Jill brings up here that Mike Brown did talk about, like, he went through and they did film study and was like, look, this is what we're expecting from you. This is why it's not working. This is what has gone wrong and how we need you to fix it, and areas where you can improve. And I thought that Holmes responded really well, really, really, really well. And then, there's some other, like, because the chat is part of what we do when we do live shows here. A lot of people are here talking about Mo Bamba. And, like, look, I think Mo Bamba, like, if you're doing, like, a really, really basic, like, getting him for free type situation, like, maybe, but does anyone else, like, Orlando's bad. They're not good at all. And that guy can't get on the court. He's like their seventh or eighth big. And I know people are like, oh, his skill set. Well, there's something funny about it. You can have whatever skill set you want. If you're not good enough to get on the court, it doesn't matter. And he doesn't seem to be good enough to get on the court in Orlando, where wins and losses don't matter. Why would he get on the court in Sacramento where they do matter? And maybe he could come in and be Keon Clark for the Sacramento Kings and, like, somehow work out for one season or two seasons. But that's a tough one. I don't know. Let's see. The trade, outside of that, I haven't seen a lot of other trade rumors right now with Sacramento Kings. We've heard some little murmurs here and there about some players that they like, some players that they might not like. Keep your ear to the ground. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out here in the next week or two, because that's the way the NBA works as we build up towards the NBA trade deadline. But
I will say real quick, I think my big takeaway for the Rui thing from Sacramento's point of view is, and you guys tell me, obviously having better perspective on covering the league for longer. God, couldn't get that one out. Do you feel like a first trade like this sets the market?
Oh, maybe.
It's funny you mentioned that, Brenden, because I keep going back to Jakob Poeltl because I feel like he's like the domino that almost has to fall, and that sounds absurd to say.
What a world.
I know, but like, I think the Rui thing, not that it came out of nowhere, but it was one that I don't think a lot of people were like. I just don't think it was one that was ultimately high on the list of priorities, if that makes sense. Whereas somebody like Poeltl is somebody that's probably been identified as kind of being a difference maker for some teams. And look, not to say that Rui won't be a difference maker for LA. That's not what I mean. I think it's more of an immediate impact as opposed to playing a little bit of the long game.
Yeah, the Lakers could use Poeltl as well. I mean, and they could also use Buddy Hield, and they could also use like three other shooters.
Anybody that can play basketball, really.
Yeah, the thing with Poeltl too,
Why
is that they fully, like, they're telling teams that they want 2 firsts for a guy who's an expiring contract and who wants $20 million a year. Like, it's out there. Like, they do. So anyway, we can kind of end the discussion on what's happening with trade stuff and all that. Brenden and I did have an interesting conversation today. Not going to tell anybody who that conversation is with, but I'll just say this, that the Kings, from our conversation today, they value Keegan Murray extremely, extremely highly. Like, they put him on like a giant pedestal. They think he will be incredible. And I don't think there's any way they move him. And certainly they wouldn't move him for a guy like Lauri Markkanen. That's sort of the conversations that we had today, which were like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. And they think that he will be a better player than Lauri Markkanen. And I bring it up just because it's always been like part of the discussion. Would you do this? Would you do that? Because anytime you bring up, hey, why don't the Kings go get OG Anunoby? like the conversation is going to start like, hey, Monte McNair calls Masai Ujiri, right? And says, hey, I would like to know what you would like for OG Anunoby. And the conversation will probably start with, okay, I like that Keegan Murray kid and a bunch of your first round picks. And the Kings would have to make a decision whether they hang up the phone or not. I'm not saying that the Kings are calling and saying, I'll give you this for that. It's usually another team that's going to say, hey, this is what I like from your team. And you tell me what you like from my team. And then you sit there and you deal with however it works out. But I don't think the Kings are going to move Keegan Murray even in the least bit at this point, especially after what we've seen over the last 2 weeks where he gets called out.
With Tyrese Halliburton.
Right. Which was something I was like, James, you had pointed this out that like, same thing was said about Tyrese for what it's worth, right? Like the right deal, anybody is available.
Right. And here's the other thing, guys. Cut the smokescreen bullshit. Look, Lauri Markkanen is not being traded. Utah's not going to let him. Like, the guy's an all-star. He's probably going to make the all-star team in the home city.
At 25.
He's done moving
under
around.
Contract
he
for
fits
2 years.
Right. So, it's just insane to me that even that would come up. And the other thing is like as Brenden said, everyone has a price. And to the people in the chat, why the hell would you want Jonathan Isaac? My God, first game in 2.5 years. How on earth do you think that's the guy that's the missing piece in Sacramento? Just ask yourself.
For those people
are you
who
out
forget,
of your mind?
For those people who forget, if you remember when he blew out his knee in the bubble, it was so long ago that the first person to go over and console him was Harry Giles on the Sacramento Kings.
Jeez.
That's how long ago. So, I mean, Harry hasn't played in the league this year. He didn't play in the league last year. The year before that, he was in Portland. That's what we're talking about. That's how long it's been. And that's not to call out Harry. What I'm trying to tell you is that, it's been years. It's been 2.5 years since that guy stepped foot on the court. And he's owed $18 million a year, something like that. It's a lot of cash. Nope.
To close.
I saw that. I couldn't believe I saw that.
Hey, 10 points in 10 minutes, Sean. Come on now.
Yeah.
He's a bucket a minute, Sean. Come on, Sean.
Crazy efficient.
Don't be that way, you downer.
I guess just to close on the Keegan conversation, because there was the same reportings about Tyrese Halliburton that he wasn't going anywhere. And obviously, like said, everybody has a price. But I think point being, the organization clearly is super high on Keegan Murray. And maybe I still have my questions about his ceiling that are admittedly dwindling with these last 2 weeks performances. But I don't think that they seem to have those same sort of questions. And that's important when it comes to just placing a value on a player. And I think the other guy that we've gotten some notable things on specifically when it comes to this trade deadline recently is just the quotes on how Mike Brown is talking about Harrison Barnes. And we also heard Keegan Murray talk about the importance of Harrison Barnes to him, but specifically Mike Brown saying the words irreplaceable and has to be here is pretty telling when the trade deadline's right around the corner, no?
Well, I'm just going to throw this up there. Mark Robertson in the chat says Barnes makes $18 million a year and isn't worth it.
What is that cartoon of, or that avatar? Can you put it back up there? I just want to say, I know. Sorry. What is that?
I don't know.
Wolf thing?
Mark, tell us what that is. I can't see.
I'm just saying, man, Mark, you couldn't be further from the on the nail. You're off by a bit.
Well, you might want to read it, because just in case someone didn't.
No, I did.
Oh, you did? My bad. I was distracted by the cartoon thing I'm trying to figure
might
out.
want to read it,
Barnes
Sean.
makes $18 million and isn't worth it.
That's just
Harrison Barnes has gone out this month and literally lit the basket on fire. I don't even know what to what we saw against the Memphis
Judgment
Grizzlies
Dragon
was the craziest thing. That the dude started the game 5 for 5 from 3, The Kings hit 10 threes in a row to start the game. It was Harrison Barnes and Keegan Murray starting out 8 of 8. They finished with 12 of 13 from 3 in the first quarter. Man, if you haven't been noticing, Harrison Barnes is the dude who was shooting 16% from 3 for like the first 3 weeks of the season is now at 38%. He's at like 55% over in the month of January. He's also a guy who is the pros pro, who plays 30-something minutes a game every single night, always shows up, never on the injury list. He's played most of the games in his career in Sacramento outside of like, hey, let's shut it down at the end of the year. Look, Harrison Barnes means a lot more to this Sacramento Kings team, and that's what Brennan's talking about. I mean, Mike Brown is literally saying, like, he's irreplaceable. And, like, for a lot of the, like, I believe it, like, that Mike Brown feels that way. I don't think he's just doing lip service. And I think he wants to keep the guy in Sacramento. So, I don't know. He's been really, really good.
I don't know. Only person to miss a 3 in that first quarter yesterday. Not worth it.
Damn it, Brenden.
Sean, by the way, in the chat, somebody said just like Beyonce, HB is irreplaceable, and I'm disappointed you haven't talked about that yet. But
it's a good song. It's a good song. I don't.
Do we have the surprise yet? By the way, there's been like some surprise.
Bless your heart. It didn't. It didn't make it here in time. It's actually in town, but I always have all my stuff sent to the station so that no porch pirates kind of a thing. And I didn't make it to the station.
You live in that good neighborhood, Sean?
Oh, I don't care where the fuck I live. Porch pirates are porch pirates. They usually go to the nice areas and they'll take your shit. So I'm not doing that. If I can ensure that my packages arrive safely, I'm going to do that. So it's in town, but trust me, it's a good one. And I think I'll. Maybe it'll be exposed on IG or something. Or if you guys do another podcast later this week, I'll try and make an appearance.
Yeah. Chances are we're not going to be able to have Sean on the pod on Thursday because he's got to get to Philly to have some cheesesteaks with Chris Tavares.
Geno's, Pats, where are we going? What do I got to do?
I don't know.
I
Brian
apologize
Goodner,
for my swearing.
Brian Goodner in the chat here asked a question. Is PJ Dozier making the team? Like, look, PJ's on his second 10-day contract. The Kings are going to be very cautious with that final roster spot. So he could sign a third 10-day contract, I believe. They could even waive him in the middle of that 10-day contract if they need his roster spot at the trade deadline. But, like, they do like him. I know that. Like, they've liked what he's brought to the table. He's smart. He's long. He's athletic. They don't have to ask him twice about defensive assignments. Like, he understands what he's supposed to do. He did make that crazy behind the back pass in the game the other night when he got some run. But I don't think the Kings are going to make a decision on PJ Dozier until after the trade deadline and see what happens. And then on top of that, figure out like if some other team dumps somebody that's more intriguing to you and all that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. He's an interesting talent. But I feel like he could be. There could be some other options on the horizon.
Oh,
possibly.
That's the sound Scott Moak makes. Anytime someone misses the first free throw and there's possible cookies on the line.
By the way, I do know if you've seen the same sound effect, very similar to in the Paul Giamatti and Cecily Strong Verizon Einstein commercial. He also does same kind of sound effect. It's a deep thing.
So I'm saying OG is coming to Sacramento from 1TXP.
Damn, they figured it out.
Yeah, that we're being cryptic. Clearly, that's what's happening. They figured us out. Damn it.
How come all the cheesesteaks in Philly are by dudes' names? Like Jim's, Pat's, Nagasino, Geno's. This guy says Jim's. Like, it can't just be like House of Cheesecake. What do we have? Yeah. Or Loretta.
Loretta's cheesesteaks.
That's,
Barbara's cheesesteaks.
What's with it?
Yeah, Rebecca's. It's
Yeah.
You just hope everyone goes there and it's like, oh, it's somebody's name. They look across the street. Oh, it's got to be Pat's. Pat's.
I think
Gino's,
you walk
Jim's.
in and you're like, hey, that over there is Ron's cheesesteaks. That's Ron from the original Ron's cheesesteak. And you're like, no, that's
Also,
not really
cheesesteak,
Ron.
man. Like, I'm gonna have like one and call it a day. I can't do that many cheesesteaks. That's just
Okay. So, should we finish this with some like answer some questions here on the side? I don't know. I like some of you got
Yes.
any chance? Mark Robertson, since we lit you up before, we'll throw this one up. Any chance because Mark plays for the Sacramento Kings, can get Grant from the Blazers? Brenden, what do you got?
Harvey Grant. Does he still play over there?
Horace Grant?
Harvey's brother.
I think that that would be an off-season thing. I think it's tough to imagine right now. I believe there's a world where the Kings could figure out the cap space. I mean, depending on how much Jeremy Grant is making, that if that's the direction they wanted to go, that maybe they could try. But I'd be pretty surprised if Portland just spent assets, although it was less than I expected, to go and get Jeremy Grant just to try to flip him when, I mean, I don't imagine that's a team that's going to be trying to be sellers or anything like that.
Okay.
I like Jeremy Grant though as a potential fit. I just don't know that it's realistic.
What about I've seen a name a couple times and it's been spelt wrong, I think, every time. But the one name that kind of has me a little eyebrow raised is JaVale McGee.
Why?
JaVale?
Yeah, man.
Jason Jones would pick him up at the airport.
I think that's probably why I'm really wanting Jason Jones back in Golden One Center. And Hassan
We miss
Whiteside
Jason.
didn't do the trick. And so if JaVale McGee was back, he would, I say back because he was in Sacramento as a kid. It would definitely happen.
Yeah. We should probably have Jason
Brendan
Jones.
said, why? You scoffed.
Come on now.
we should probably get Jason Jones on.
Just get Taco Fall
and
while
off
we're
the
at it.
record.
By the way,
Yeah.
I've talked to, I mean, this isn't saying much, but I the only reason I shouted it out because I saw it there, but it's literally talking to a few scouts over the past 3 weeks, and it's a name that has come up 3 different times. I'm not saying the Kings are getting JaVale McGee, but it's one that scouts feel that would be a good fit in Sacramento.
You said
I don't
it.
know that I agree with it, but certainly they're looking at the backup center role and saying you need to be better, and I think they just identified one that would be better.
I don't know. I'm not going after JaVale McGee. I still like Kyle Cantrell in the chat here. Charlotte Hornets, Mason Plumlee. He's still the guy that the Plum Dog millionaire, as Stanley puts it up here, which I like that. I don't know that. There you go. I like it.
And he's got a dog in his picture.
That's a corgi, like my little corgi.
Oh, that's
My
what you
little
got?
corgi. She's a shit. My goodness, she's a little nightmare.
I'm sure Sean feels the same way, vice versa, but I can't believe you're going to scoff at Nerlens Noel and then fucking sit here and recommend JaVale McGee.
it's not- what did I say? It's not that I said this. Again,
You
Just-
made Brendan curse.
I did. It's always my goal.
My bad.
It is my
You
goal.
made Brendan drop an F-bomb.
He- this is the late night session, so we can get it.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know.
May I interest you in one Damian Jones? Yeah, I like Damian Jones and Ernest Cantor. I think you mean
Cantor, please.
I think
Freedom.
you mean Ennis.
Freedom. You're right. That's right.
yeah.
Freedom.
There's also like I don't know if he's been telling people that there's a $500,000 like bounty on his head. So I'm not sure that I'm gonna go sign a restricted free agent that has a bounty on his head. I don't know that I want that in my world. I'm just saying. Like, good luck with that. That's a little strange. Chris
That's wild.
Ochoa asks, "What about Towns?"
Oh boy.
Oh
First of
boy,
all, you
don't
can't
you
trade
know?
him. Yeah. First of all, you cannot trade him until the offseason. Is that correct? That's because of his extension and the way his contract is. But if I
you
was
base your
Minnesota,
compensation
and I
plan,
had this
maybe.
conversation to several people already this year, the minute I could trade him, I would give him away. And I would, if I was building a team,
him away.
I am not a Karl Anthony Towns fan. I would not go after him at all. Not a winning basketball player. I'm just not doing it.
JaVale McGee, though.
No, I didn't say JaVale McGee. How dare you? First of all, it also cost a hell of a lot to get Karl Anthony Towns. I just don't think that if you've ever seen the movie The Girl Next Door, fantastic movie if you haven't seen it.
Yes, fantastic movie.
There's a expression I love to live by, and it says, "Make sure the juice is worth the squeeze," and he ain't it. So
He ain't
love you
it.
too, Blake.
He ain't it. Yeah, where's DB in the chat making like weird, uncomfortable Sean
Advances.
advances? Dwight Howard, Patrick Kilkenny. I'm gonna say no. How about no?
Oh, man.
And Andre Drummond. You don't hate it?
Whoa, hold on. What are you saying? Dwight
I don't
Howard?
hate Dwight. I
Dwight
don't hate the
Howard.
idea. What would it cost? Right? What does it cost
Ain't
to
it?
try him instead of PJ? And I don't know.
Not touching
I don't
him.
know.
Nope. And Andre Drummond, you know what? Andre Drummond, first of all, is like gigantic. Like that is a big dude.
That's mean. That's just mean.
No, like I mean, he's just like a big man. I'm not saying he.
I knew
went
what you
full-
meant.
I didn't say he went like full Oliver Miller. Like he's a big dude though. I don't know that he works with the pace of the Kings, but the last couple of times I've watched him play, he's actually really impressed me as a passer, which I didn't think I would ever say, but like I might be okay with Andre Drummond as like a rental at the end of the season or for like I think he signed a 2-year like really low budget deal. So yeah, I don't know that I would fully say no to Andre Drummond. But
The big
he's-
takeaways here is we're all desperate. Sean is sitting here
No,
saying,
no, I'm
saying
definitely not
Nerlens,
desperate.
Or Sean is saying JaVale. I'm saying Nerlens. James is saying Andre Drummond. Like, what are we doing here, guys? The backup
is
center
how-
needs to be figured out.
You know what?
Andre
Brendan,
Drummond's on a
as,
2-year, $6.6 million deal.
but like,
as somebody
That's where
who
we're at.
aspires to be in journalism, you have to get facts straight, sir. And that was not what I said. Shout out
Sean
Jack
loves
Cooley.
JaVale McGee. Yeah. And you know, AA brings up Crowder would be nice too. I was listening to, I believe it was a Zach Lowe podcast today, and he was saying that their asking price is still like a young player, a player who can play now, and like some sort of pick for Jay Crowder. And their take was like, man, the dude hasn't played since, the Dallas series. He hasn't played forever. So that just would be a, like, how quick does he acclimate back? What does he look like? What kind of shape is he in? How much can he help your team now? I think 2 months ago, Jay Crowder would have been really intriguing, but that was a long time ago. So, all right, are we ready to wrap this thing up? Sean's got something going on over there.
It is the witching hour. It's
where wins become losses and losses become wins. Is that what you're trying to tell us, Sean?
and boys become men.
There we go.
Did we get to final thoughts? I don't know what we're doing.
I
This
think
is your show. This is the people's show. We do what they
the
want.
People's Show. Chris Boucher. No, he's owed too much money.
I literally talked
Toronto's-
about Chris Boucher earlier today, being like, I know one bad contract doesn't justify another, but talk about Richaun. Look at Chris Boucher.
Yeah, you did
Not
say
great.
that.
Not great.
Yeah. Christian Wood. Yeah, Christian Wood's like.
Oh, that used to be
he's
your
hurt.
guy, man.
What's that?
He was your guy.
I liked him as a low budget.
Him and like
pickup.
Sadiq Bey. I mean, boy, I think you were getting kickbacks somehow because you were first team all.
I would
Bay.
still take Sadiq Bey. Like, is he fallen? Is he still out of the rotation in Detroit?
First of all,
Or not out of the rotation, but like
I keep seeing Wendell Carter. I can't see that happening. I think Orlando loves Wendell Carter.
they do.
I can't see them moving him. By the way, Toronto, who's here tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. We're not past midnight yet. Boy, they kind of hold all the cards too, right? Like you're talking about Brenden team that the play like was Rui Hachimura, the one that everyone was waiting for, and might be Jakob Hurtel, but it's like no, the one that could really be the upset the apple cart here is Toronto. I mean, you've got a lot of guys that can help a lot of teams, and it's all in. Do they want to be a player, or do they want to hit a full reset? Like, what are they looking like? Do you either of you? You know me, I was kind of first team all Scotty Barnes that year, but do either of you think any less of Scotty Barnes than you did then?
I would take Scotty Barnes in a heartbeat.
No,
I
know
love
you
Scotty
would.
Barnes.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, like if you're Toronto, for example.
No, they're not giving him up.
No, I think that he's great. I don't know that we're talking like best player on a championship team or anything, which it seemed like the hype got there for a little bit, but I think when it comes to like relative to draft time expectations, it's about the same, even if it maybe like spiked for a sec and then has calmed down a bit.
Could be fun.
All right.
I think Van Vliet gets moved. I could see that.
Yeah, Van Vliet's the guy that they're saying Van Vliet and Gary Trent, right? They definitely could be on the move, and then it's like whether you got to decide whether you're gonna break up OG and Siakam.
Van Vliet's numbers make you want to barf. Like
I know they do.
It's horrible. 38% from the field in a contract year when it looked like this guy was about to get cashed out. Like it's
in this economy,
it's pretty crazy.
In this economy,
pretty crazy.
Yeah, but is it really because he's only shooting like 0.15 less than what he did last year? He only shot 40.3% from the field last year. He's down a little bit in his 3 points from 37.7 to 34.4, but that's like 3 good games and he's the same player. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Brenden, did you see Life yet? Or do you owe us a drink?
No. I don't know, you shit.
Bad. Why not?
Damn it.
You promised, but you promised.
No, you got him cursing again. You got him cursing again.
I'm rubbing off on Brenden. This is a good thing. He's gonna be real surly like me later on.
That's funny. That's funny.
How's the property management going now that the storms have calmed down? Everything working all right?
I mean, people are still
People?
We'll just roll with it. Dumbasses, there's nothing new. Like, yeah. I had to tell somebody that, like, did you try to change your light bulb today? Like, had to be on the phone and be like, yeah, lefty loosey, righty tighty. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? How else do I walk someone through how to change a light bulb? I don't know.
We've lost control of this thing. Robert Covington, maybe I'd consider Robert Covington. He's kind of the guy, like if we're talking about Jay Crowder, Robert Covington is kind of like a better fit version of Jay Crowder for the Kings, in my opinion. And he's older. I would take him. And I think he would fit in well.
Somebody said Jared Allen would be nice. Yeah, totally. So would Joel Embiid.
He grows.
I'd buy backup bigs that are interesting. Mason Plumlee. I like Kelly Olynyk. And I'm interested in Naz Reid. Those are 3 that I think are kind of intriguing to me. I am.
I like Charlie
Bolton. JaVale McGee,
up
Sean.
Josh Richardson. I like Josh Richardson. I've always liked Josh Richardson. He doesn't seem to stick anywhere now, though. I remember
the thing is that he's making upward of $10 million, and it's hard to match salary.
Except for Richaun Holmes,
right?
Or you could do something like Terrence Davis and Alex Len.
Yeah,
like 2 expiring contracts and a 2nd-round pick. I don't know. Just saying. Do not bring back Rudy Gay. Like, I don't know if you've watched Rudy Gay play this year, but Rudy Gay does not look like the Rudy Gay that we knew and love here in Sacramento. And there's a lot of talk that, I mean, first of all, he has a player option for next year too, and he ain't gonna opt out of it. He's gonna take that money, and then he'll probably get bought out and stretch provisioned.
Do you guys believe in the Clippers yet, or still? If you did,
They're not a team I want to see in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm with you
played
there.
a lot of
And
games.
that would be who you played if the season ended today. The Kings would match up with the Clippers in the first round.
I mean, I won't make any predictions.
Yeah.
Hashtag washed.
Do you think they stay
don't
right
say
about
that.
where they are, or do you think they fall?
No,
They're
I
currently
think
fifth in
they.
the West for those listening.
I don't think they fall. No.
I don't know.
That's
around
that's a
that.
good question.
It's such a
All right.
It's such a mystery team. I was watching them earlier, and it's just, I
They
don't
can
know.
be
I
hard
don't
to
know what make of
watch.
them.
Yeah, they can
They
be hard
can.
to watch.
I also
are
think
a
they need to-
collection of pieces. That's what they are.
They also need to get off the whole like resting players thing and just, I know they're trying to just get into the playoffs, and maybe they feel like they can make a run just like any of these veteran laid in teams that have some superstars on them. But I don't know. I have some pretty wild opinions about not only the Clippers but like even the Lakers. Like I think they should trade LeBron. That's the one that I think they should trade, but I don't think it'll happen, obviously.
Go full LeBron. Boo, that would be crazy. I don't
Wouldn't
think
that be
we'll ever see that.
insane? I know.
Mark Robertson believes that he's got to ask every question. I have seen Avatar: Way of the Water. Mark Robertson. I have seen it.
I've seen the first Avatar. I get credit for that one. I don't know that I'm going to watch the next one.
Me and my youngest and the wife went to go see it at Studio Movie Grill. It was,
Do you like that?
Yeah,
Just
I
the
like Studio
concept?
Movie Grill. I do. Like sitting there eating. Yeah, I do.
I don't like to be bothered when I'm watching a movie, though. I know Brendan falls asleep, but like, can you imagine like just a waiter coming up to you every 5 seconds? Like, I don't.
No, they don't come up to you like that. No,
You have to hit a button, right?
You hit
I've
the
done it
button in the
before.
beginning, and you order everything in the beginning, and then they quietly bring it to you throughout the movie.
Not so quietly. No,
can
I've
be a
been there.
little-
I like it. It's not necessarily even for me. Like if you've got people next to you who are ordering their food, doing their drinks, whatever. Like
That's true.
it is very distracting. And I tried to get through it. Like I mean, I did get through it. It's not like I'm just saying I tried to like keep an open mind, and I came to the like my coworker Chris Tavares over at 40 Alamo. What is it? Alamo Movie House or something like that. There's one in San Francisco, but there's that. I think it started in like the Austin area, but where he's from, and I guess everyone tries to copy what they do. They do it the best, but I told him my experience at Studio Movie Grill, and he says, "No, that's not how it'd be." Unless Studio Movie Grill wants to prove me wrong and become a sponsor and all that. Then I'll.
There we
shut
go.
up, but
There we go.
yeah.
I did watch the movie. My wife has she doesn't like seeing animals being hurt, and even though they're
Well, who does?
Avatar animals,
Some people.
yeah, but no, like she won't watch a movie if she knows like a horse dies in the movie or something. Like, and I'm not talking about war movies and stuff like that. I'm talking about like, she's not a old Yeller type person, and there's a lot of death and sort of maiming in that was slightly unnecessary, and so, yeah.
Do you think
I
she'll
mean,
want to see? Do you think she'll want to see Cocaine Bear?
oh, I don't think I know Cocaine Bear.
Oh, trust me, you should watch that trailer.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, and funny enough, based on a true story.
Based on a true
Based.
story. Uh-oh.
So was Surf's Up. I don't.
Was it?
Yeah, I don't. Ever since I saw it before that movie, it doesn't do anything for me anymore.
Oh, there's the guy. Sorry, sir. I know you reached out to me. D 3500. That's the gentleman I saw at Peony Palace who said to leave Brendan alone.
Oh, yep.
I shared that story.
We will not
Big Niners fan.
leave
Hope he's.
Brennan alone.
I leave Brendan alone, but I'm not hard on Brendan.
Rico Stacks asked, can we get Cameron Johnson? Like Mark Robertson, Rico plays for the Sacramento Kings. Yeah, I don't think the Kings can get Cameron Johnson. I don't think that they're gonna make that move. I don't think that's where Phoenix is going. Phoenix is in a weird spot because their superstar point guard has gotten old, and he can still do it, but he can only perform it at the highest level like 18 times a game, I think, for the whole entire season. And so that's a problem. Okay, let's get to final thoughts. Do we have any final thoughts? Let's start.
Why don't you go first? Because you usually go dark.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. What were my final thoughts? Yeah, you did put me on because I usually listen to your guys' final thoughts while I'm thinking of my final thoughts.
I'll go first. Do you want me to go first?
No.
Oh, you want me? I was gonna let him off the hook. I'm a nice guy.
I'm excited about the Niners Philadelphia game. I've been very honest with my thoughts on the fact that I think everyone in the world somehow overlooked the Philadelphia Eagles this year, and that they're badass, and they got 4 dudes with 10 sacks or more, and they've got 2 stud wide receivers. They've got a fun running back. They've got a great young quarterback, big time offensive, defensive line. That's going to be a test. And I still think a lot of people think the Niners are going to win, even though Philadelphia is favored in that game.
2.5 points.
Yeah, that would be one thing. Side of that, I did have to.
Do you think they win? Are you going to go with them? You going to go with the Niners?
I would still go with Niners. I'm going to go Niners, but I'm going to say 24-20. That would be my guess. 24-20. And that's I really, really hope that Kyle Shanahan opens up the playbook and lets Brock Purdy play. Because if you don't, you're going to lose. You got to let him sling it.
I like the fact that they could win a game where he didn't throw a touchdown. He didn't look tremendous. He felt he ran into some really, especially in that first half. I mean, that defense is just huge. So they win it on the backs of their defense, and they were able to force 2 turnovers so early. That was really impressive. So
hopefully,
I was gonna say too, my other final thought. I had to go to Marysville this afternoon, the evening, for my son's soccer game, high school soccer. Again, whoever decided to put soccer in the winter and then not fund soccer because it's not a sport that you really care about, just needs to be drug out in the street. I mean, it's brutal. These poor kids are out there with shorts and T-shirts. That's the soccer uniform. And every single game has been in the 30s or low 40s all season long. It's been absolutely horrible. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's not. The fields are trash. It's bad. So whoever's fault that is, you need to be slapped. It's not good.
You signed up for it.
No, my kids signed up for it. I didn't sign up for it.
Yeah, hey, by all means, go kids. We'll get you out there, and then you go hang out in a Denny's or something. I don't know.
Spoken like a true man who doesn't have children.
I would just hang out from the car and watch from afar.
You go, you support, you sit there and you freeze your ass off. You get back in the car. It's the way it goes. Plus, my oldest is coaching my youngest, so it's kind of cool at the high school level.
That is cool.
All right, final thoughts. What do you got? Let's go, Brenden.
Yeah,
I feel like an official Kings Beat member after who knows how many episodes. Do you guys know why?
Because you finally decided to curse? I don't know.
You watched a movie?
No, absolutely not. That is my role, is to not watch a movie ever. I was handed some ice cream from the two of you at the last game.
Oh, snap. That's right.
We are out here,
For the
guys.
record, it wasn't the two of us. It was James. James did that.
Well, usually it's you two. Okay, sorry that I was included this time and you weren't.
No, I took a bite or two, and it was.
So people who don't know this, somewhere hiding in Golden One Center, I don't even know where it's at.
They don't advertise it, I don't think, right? It's like
there's an ice cream machine that they put ice cream in a bowl, and you have vanilla or you have chocolate, or I choose to go with the swirl. And there's some really nice gentlemen that sit behind us that handle the scores table stuff. And they used to do this for our friend Mike Wagaman, who is with the AP, who's had some health problems. So thoughts and prayers to Wags. Again, he's our friend that like really enjoys the bing bong noise that they made at that one point. Anyway, there are games where the guys behind me bring me a bowl of ice cream and hand it over. So we started getting to a point where I would ask for, it's so much ice cream that I would never eat all of it. So we get 2 spoons, and then I make a mark in the middle, and me and Sean will share the ice cream. And then
I just watched
Brenden has been left out. Well, this last time we got and it was even bigger than normal. It was like a foot tall ice cream.
It looked like a snowman, dude. Like
It was
beautiful.
It was gorgeous, yeah. And so I lopped the
it's not
top
like
off and put that in a cup and gave it to
It's
Brenden.
not, yeah, and it's not like the typical soft serve you might find at a buffet. Like, you know what I mean? Like I mean,
I don't
Brenden,
know why
you
it's
tried
so
it.
good. It's so
It
good.
is.
It lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do they sell that? I don't even know if they sell. Where do they have? Of course, they have to sell it, right? I don't even know. What
They
they're
have
doing.
it somewhere. They have it somewhere. I don't know. It just gets delivered to me, and I feel bad because then last night I'm like, hey, I need another spoon. Like you only brought me 1 spoon, and they went and got me a spoon and brought it back. And so anyway, yes,
Look at all
that's
these
you.
people
You
have doing for you.
you officially believe that you're part of the team now because we shared our ice cream with you.
Yeah. I feel loved for the
It's
first time in my life.
It's typically like a Lady and the Tramp experience between James and I as we
Whoa,
eat this ice
whoa.
cream. Yeah.
Oh,
No, Sean and I are literally we watch a game
I just killed James.
like the 2 angry old men in the Muppets, like that sit up in the balcony. We sit there and we talk shit the whole game, and
Yes.
that's how we handle ourselves. And sometimes we get ice cream. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean, final thoughts. Now that Brenden
my
is
turn.
loved and we know he's loved.
What was I gonna do? I was gonna say, shout out to our All-American in Sacramento, Andrei Stojakovic, Jesuit High School.
Oh
Made
yes,
the All-American team, and I guess you could technically put in, Jared McCain, even though he's down at Centennial in Southern California, that he's headed to Duke, and he's also from Sacramento. So I guess you got 2 Sacramento All-Americans in the high school level. But
McDonald's
it was kinda cool to see
All-American.
a Stojakovic and a James in the All-American, 2 NBA products like that. That's kind of cool.
I thought it was cool as well. That's your final thought? Is that it?
I was just giving him a shout out. I mean, I mean, you know me, I can go on for days. How about Josh Jackson heading to the G League to Stockton Kings? That's kind of neat.
oh, big news.
Wow.
some
The funny
sarcasm
thing is,
there.
he was I had to ask. He was acquired, and I'm like, how was he acquired? What does that mean? Because you didn't give up a pick. At least you didn't tell us. You didn't give up a player. You waived a player, which I didn't know that player, but we did find out that like the player that he was he had entered the G League portal and was like available, and like teams put in waiver claims, but I think it was kind of known that he wanted to go play for Sacramento, and Bobby Jackson's doing a great job down there. They're like 9-2, right? Something like
I haven't
that.
seen the record recently, but yeah, that's
Oh yeah, they're killing it. Yeah,
they've turned it around. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Did you see Trevor's comment, by the way, James?
Trevor's
About
comment.
where the ice cream is located in Golden One Center? It was at Cafe Bernardo, and evidently they have shakes there as well.
Maybe that's interesting.
I need to find out what kind of shakes are over there.
Sean's now gonna start asking for shakes. He's gonna ruin my ice cream hookup.
Well, I didn't know that you had like servants
10-2.
bringing you stuff like this. I thought it was like everyone threw in a buck or two and made it
Oh
happen.
no! On occasion, I hand my card and I buy for a bunch. I say I got tonight's ice cream, and little did I know, I didn't know what that meant. I still have never looked at my ATM card to see how much my bill to see how much that cost me. But I did I found out later. People walk by like, "Hey, thanks for the ice cream tonight," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And it happened more than once, and I'm like, "How many ice creams did I buy?"
Well, James,
I
has a
still
fleet
never
of
got
boats. We're good.
Well, now you've had at least part of the ice cream, the shared ice cream, the shared Kings Beat ice cream.
In 6 months, I'll try a shake. It'll be great. I'm looking forward
That's
to
right.
it.
We'll get a third spoon for a shake. Okay. Let's finish up predictions. I gave my prediction for 49ers. Sean, what do you got?
Boy, I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it. So, put on the spot, I'll say I think the 49ers I think they're going to handle business. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be let's say 28-21.
Okay. So not quite as close as what I said, but go ahead. That's fine.
How about yeah, 28 20. Yeah, that's close. What the fuck? That's close.
Well, I said 24-20, which is closer.
Well, I didn't mean by 19-10 or something, or 20-19 or something like that. Like they missed by an extra point, but still close.
And then Brenden, do you have a
I
pick?
will go 34-28 San Francisco. And just shout out to the guy in the comments that said this is not the Niners beat, because I'm sure he's really appreciating this segment right now.
All right. Yeah.
Can't please
the
everyone,
Wilcox
though.
kids are watching. We know this. Okay. I got one last final thought. This might be the last time we see the Kings for, this is going to be the last time we see the Kings for like 14 days, right? They're going to be on the 7-game road trip. And like De'Aaron Fox and Rasay, his wife, they're expecting like in the coming weeks. So just like some positive vibes to the Foxes as they look to welcome their young baby into the world. So cool. Thanks for sticking.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, James. You froze.
Damn it, Sean.
Right, look what I did.
I think this is my time to say Harrison Barnes is not washed, for what it's worth. Just to
I think
continue
you
to get that out there.
After every single episode.
If he, I will, as long as you need me to. As long as you need me to.
I think James went and left us and went to go have some ice cream.
How are you on flight, Sean? Well, we fill time here. You got to fly to Philly,
Thank
are
you
you?
for asking. That's a super question. I actually, not to complain because it's totally first world problems, but I don't know if you noticed, I'm a man of a little bit bigger carriage, and you should never
it's
put
a middle
me in
seat.
a middle seat. And I currently am trying to get out of a middle seat for one of the flights, I think, coming back. So I'm fine on flights. I can get on there and just pass out. Throw some music in. I'm not a big movie watcher on flights because sometimes you can't, especially if you're watching a movie you've never seen before, which is usually what most people do. Oh, that was fun. We just juggled around.
I'm back.
If you're watching a movie on a flight or a TV show on a flight that you've never seen before, and sometimes you're not in control of the content that your screen is showing. Therefore, if a certain type of scene comes on and there are people around you, you're not really responsible for that. But other people just go, "What the fuck's he watching?" Right? Like, so I don't like to watch stuff on flights too much. I like to do a lot of reading and a lot of listening to music or podcasts, and more importantly, sleeping.
There we go.
Aren't you?
All
glad
right,
you
so
asked?
Very glad I asked.
we're out. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the King's Beat podcast. If you're still watching, give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. Oh, Brennan's ready. He's
ready, buddy. He's cocked and locked
primed,
and ready to rock.
He's primed and ready. So, for Fox 40, Sean Cunningham, and of course, Brenden Nunes from the King's Pulse podcast. I'm James Ham, your Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the King's Beat. We will see you later this week. We'll have a happy hour next Thursday, February 2nd, with Aileen Voice on. Should be an interesting couple of weeks. Kings are 8 games over 500. They're still rolling, 3rd seed in the Western Conference. We'll see you later.
Keep it
Have a
going,
good
buddy.
night.
No, let him hold that pose.
Adios.
Bye.